At 3:12 a.m., the nursery camera in the Marconi mansion went dark, like someone had taken a knife to the feed. Not a glitch, not a power cut, a clean, deliberate blackout that lasted exactly 2 hours. In that 2-hour window, a 6-month-old baby named Luca Marconi screamed until his voice went raw, then went frighteningly quiet. By sunrise, his diaper was soaked through with yellow-green liquid, his skin papery and pale, and his tiny ribs pressed out like a cage that couldn't hold him anymore. His father, Salvatore Marconi, a man Boston's underworld called the King of the Harbor, had spent millions chasing answers. Specialists, private labs, miracle supplements flown in from Switzerland. Nothing changed. Luca kept wasting away as if something inside him was siphoning life drop by drop. Then a nanny with shaking hands called a broke pediatrician from the poorest wing of South Boston General. Her name was Dr. Alara Quinn, 27, drowning in debt, sleeping in the on-call room when her apartment's mold made her lungs burn. She should have said no. She had a sister, June, whose leukemia had turned urgent, with a surgery deposit Alara couldn't afford. But the nanny's last sentence pinned Alara in place. "Doctor, every time Mrs. Marconi feeds him at night, he gets worse. If you're watching, tell us in the comments what city you're from. And if stories like this hit you in the chest, like, subscribe, and stay with us." Because what Alara found inside that mansion proved money can buy doctors, but it can't buy innocence back once it's stolen. Alara took the call in a hallway that smelled like antiseptic and old coffee. Kids cried behind thin curtains. A monitor beeped in a tired rhythm. She had just finished listening to a toddler's lungs when her phone vibrated with the number from St. Brigid's Oncology. June's attending spoke gently, too gently, like he'd already accepted the grief. "Her counts are dropping. The transplant needs to happen within 2 weeks. Deposit is $75,000. Alara slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor, staring at the chipped paint near the baseboard. 75,000 might as well have been the moon. Her bank app showed $612.18. Her student loans showed a number that felt like a life sentence. That's when the second call came. Unknown number. Alara almost ignored it, then answered, because fear had already taken the wheel. A woman's voice cracked. "Dr. Quinn? It's Rosa Delgado. 2 years ago you pushed for an X-ray when everyone said my son had a cold. You saved him." Alara remembered. Small boy, blue lips, a mother begging the universe for mercy. Rosa swallowed hard. "I'm a nanny now. The baby I watch is dying. And no one can explain why. He eats. He doesn't vomit. He just disappears." Alara's throat tightened. "If you've seen the best doctors, why me?" "Because you look. And because something in that house isn't right." A pause. Then Rosa whispered the name like it could summon a bullet. "The Marconis. Salvatore Marconi." Alara's pulse thudded. Everyone in Boston had heard the stories. Ports, unions, politicians. Strings pulled so quietly people mistook them for fate. "Send the address," Alara heard herself say. After my shift. When she hung up, she didn't feel brave. She felt like she just stepped off a ledge and was waiting to find out if there was ground. Alara drove her 12-year-old sedan across the bridge with heater stuck on lukewarm. Boston glittered ahead. Gold street lamps, dark water, the skyline like teeth. Beacon Hill was another planet. Cobblestone streets. Townhouses that looked carved from money itself. Cars parked curbside with paint that shone like wet ink. Her GPS led her to a private drive ending at iron gates tall enough to shame a castle. Cameras watched from every angle. 2 men in suits stood so still they looked like statues with guns. One stepped forward. Broad shoulders, neat beard, eyes the color of winter steel. "State your name." "Dr. Alara Quinn," Rosa Delgado called. "About the baby." The man's gaze flicked over her scuffed shoes and thrift store coat. Not disgust. Calculation. Out of the car, they searched her bag, ran a wand, checked her stethoscope like it might bite. The man finally nodded once. "I'm Tomas Varga," he said. "Security chief. I'll be with you the entire time. If you do anything that risks the family. I'm here to save a child." Alara cut in, surprising herself. "If you want to threaten someone, threaten the people who already failed him." A faint twitch near Tomas's eye. Almost respect. The gates opened. Inside, the drive curved past trimmed hedges and a fountain that whispered like a secret. The mansion rose ahead. 3 stories, lights blazing in every window as if sleep had been banned. Alara followed Tomas through doors heavy enough to stop a storm. Marble floors, a chandelier like frozen lightning, paintings that looked older than the country. And then she was led into an office that smelled of leather, smoke, and something sharper, control. Behind a dark desk sat the man who owned the room like gravity. Salvatore Marconi. Salvatore didn't look like Alara's imagination. No loud gold, no theatrical menace. Just a tailored black suit, dark hair slightly undone, and eyes that had learned to never ask twice. He studied her like she was a puzzle he could solve by staring long enough. "So this is Rose's miracle, doctor," he said quietly. "You look tired." "I am tired," Alara replied. "And your son is dying. If we're going to trade judgments, we'll run out of time." Tomas's posture tightened behind her. Salvatore rose, tall and measured, and walked around the desk until he was close enough that Alara caught the scent of expensive cologne and sleepless nights. "You know who I am?" "I know you're a father," Alara said. "That's the only part of you that matters to me." Silence stretched, not empty, heavy. Salvatore's gaze flicked to her hands, to the faint tremble she tried to hide. "You have 1 week," he said at last. "A week to find what 15 doctors missed. If you fail, you leave. If you succeed, I owe you." Alara swallowed. "And if I find someone hurting him?" Something cold moved behind Salvatore's eyes. "Then you tell me first." Tomas opened the office doors. "This way." As they climbed the curved staircase, Alara passed a hallway lined with framed photographs. Charity galas, boats, smiles that looked practiced. One photo caught her. Salvatore beside a stunning blonde woman, her hand on his arm like a claim. Tomas stopped at a nursery door. Young Master Luca. Inside, the room was perfect. Soft blue walls, a moon nightlight, toys arranged like decorations, and in the center, in an expensive crib, lay a baby who looked like he was slipping away. Luca's cheeks were hollow. His eyes, too old for 6 months, stared at the ceiling with exhausted resignation. Alara's chest tightened so hard she almost forgot to breathe. Rosa stood beside the crib, face worn down by weeks of fear. "Thank you for coming," she whispered, like volume itself could wake danger. Alara checked Luca, heart steady, lungs clear, no fever. He should have been thriving. Instead he was shrinking. "How does he eat?" Alara asked. "Formula," Rosa said quickly. 5 bottles a day. He doesn't refuse. No vomiting. Stools? Rosa hesitated. Sometimes, terrible diarrhea. Mostly at night. Before Alara could ask more, the door opened. The woman from the hallway photos stepped in. Celeste Marconi was beautiful in a polished, distant way, platinum hair, pale eyes, black dress that belonged at a gala, not a nursery. She stayed 2 full steps away from the crib, as if closeness might stain her. "So you're the public hospital doctor," Celeste said lightly. "Salvatore thinks you're special. I think your son needs help," Alara replied. Celeste's smile didn't reach her eyes. She described Luca's schedule in perfect numbers, milliliters, minutes, naps, like she was reading a report. Not once did her voice crack with fear. Not once did she touch her baby. When Celeste left, Rosa leaned in, voice trembling. "Doctor, please. Every time she feeds him at night, he screams later. When I feed him, he's fine." Alara stared at Luca's tiny fingers gripping the crib rail. Something in her mind clicked. Not an answer, a warning. That night, Alara didn't unpack. She didn't sleep. She sat in the nursery's armchair while the mansion quieted into a hush too expensive to be real. At 3 a.m., footsteps whispered outside the door. Alara slipped into the shadow behind the wardrobe. The nursery door opened. Celeste entered holding a bottle Alara hadn't seen Rosa prepare. And the camera in the corner? The one above the crib? Its tiny red light was off. Celeste moved like she knew the house would protect her. She lifted Luca gently, almost tenderly, and fed him in the moonlight glow. Alara watched every motion, heart hammering, refusing to blink. 10 minutes later, Celeste set Luca back down and left without a glance behind her. Alara waited. She needed to be sure she wasn't hallucinating suspicion from exhaustion. Less than 30 minutes later, Luca's body tightened. His face pinched with pain. And then the scream hit, high, frantic, the sound of a baby trying to outrun something inside him. Alara rushed to him, changed the soaked diaper, and her stomach turned at the smell and the color. Diarrhea like a flood. Too severe, too immediate. She held Luca against her chest and whispered, "I've got you," even though she didn't know if she did. By dawn, her eyes burned with no sleep and too much certainty. She needed proof. In the kitchen, she found the bottle in the trash, handled it with paper towels, lifted it into the light. At the bottom, cloudy sediment that didn't belong in formula. Alara drew what she could into a vial, sealed it, hid it in her coat. On the way back upstairs, she passed a security room door slightly ajar. Monitors lined the wall. One screen showed the nursery, except the footage jumped, skipping from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. like the hours had been erased. Alara's blood ran cold. Someone wasn't just poisoning Luca. Someone was editing reality. Back in her guest room, she called the only lab tech she trusted, Noah Park, a friend from Southie General. "Noah," she whispered, "I'm sending you a sample. Test it fast. Don't ask why." A pause. "Alara, are you safe?" "I don't know," she admitted. "But a baby isn't." She hung up, staring at the mansion's sunlit garden outside her window, feeling like she'd wandered into a beautiful cage. And somewhere in the house, someone was watching her back. Day 2 felt like walking with glass under her feet. Celeste appeared at random times, always calm, always composed, asking questions that sounded like concern but landed like threats. "What are you writing?" Celeste asked when she saw Alara's notebook. "Clinical observations," Alara said, closing it. "Standard." Celeste's eyes flicked to the closed cover. "You roam the house at odd hours." "I'm monitoring my patient." A small smile. "Good. Monitor him. Not my home." That evening Tomas appeared at Alara's door. "Boss wants you downstairs." In Salvatore's office, Celeste sat elegantly across from him, hands folded. She looked like a judge who already had the verdict. "My wife says you're acting curious," Salvatore said, voice steady. "She says you're searching." Alara met his stare. "I'm searching for the reason your son is losing weight. And I found something that doesn't belong in his bottle." Celeste's expression snapped. "That's insane." Alara didn't blink. "Then you won't mind if I keep observing the night feedings." The room went still. Tomas shifted behind her, like he was ready to catch falling pieces. Salvatore's jaw tightened. "A week," he repeated. "Bring me proof, or leave my house." "I'll bring you the truth," Alara said. "And the truth doesn't care how powerful you are." She left before her legs could betray how badly they wanted to shake. That night, her phone buzzed. No's message. "Results ready. Call, now." Alara stepped into a hallway corner and dialed with fingers that felt numb. No's voice came out tense. "Alara, that sample contains a concentrated stimulant laxative. Adult strength. Repeated doses could dehydrate a baby, strip electrolytes, cause malnutrition. It could kill him." Alara closed her eyes, swallowing bile. Someone was doing this on purpose. She needed proof of who. And she needed it before Luca's body ran out of time. Alara found Tomas in the security room during the narrow window when Celeste was out and Salvatore was busy. The monitors reflected in Tomas's eyes like 1,000 silent witnesses. "I need to talk to you," Alara said, closing the door behind her. Tomas's posture tightened. "Talk." Alara slid No's printed results onto the desk. Tomas read them once, twice. His jaw clenched hard enough to flex the muscle in his cheek. "That's a baby," he said quietly. "Yes." He looked up, and for the first time, the steel in his eyes cracked enough to show anger underneath. "You're accusing Mrs. Marconi." "I'm saying whoever feeds him during the blackout window is dosing him." Tomas stared at the nursery feed on the monitor. Luca sleeping, Rosa humming softly in the chair. "How do you know about the blackout?" he asked. "Because I saw the time jump." Tomas's expression darkened like a door closing. "Only 2 people can authorize that." Alara's heart beat louder. Salvatore and Celeste. Tomas didn't answer. He just stared at the screens long enough that Alara wondered if she'd misjudged him and signed her death warrant. Then Tomas opened a locked drawer and pulled out a tiny device. "Wireless camera," he said. "Battery lasts a week. It streams only to my phone. Can't be disabled from the system. Alara exhaled shakily. Will you help me? Tomas's voice dropped low. I owe the boss my life. But Luca is not a bargaining chip. Install it tonight. Alara's throat burned. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Tomas said. If we're wrong, we die. If we're right, this house burns from the inside. That night, Tomas hid the camera inside a stuffed bear on the toy shelf, angled perfectly toward the formula station and crib. Alara lay in bed with her phone on her chest, staring at the live feed as minutes crawled by. 2:40 a.m., 2:50 a.m., 2:59 a.m. The nursery door opened, and Celeste slipped inside like a whisper. Alara's finger hit record. Celeste moved to the formula station and mixed a bottle with practiced hands. Then she paused, looked over her shoulder, and pulled a small white container from her nightgown pocket. She poured powder into the bottle, shook it until it disappeared. Alara's vision tunneled. She wanted to run, to scream, to rip the bottle away, but proof mattered. Proof was Luca's shield. Celeste lifted Luca, fed him, and in the dim glow of the moonlight light, she whispered words that turned Alara's stomach to ice. I'm sorry, my sweet boy, Celeste murmured, voice trembling. I didn't mean for you to get this small. She kissed Luca's forehead. When you're sick, he stays. He cancels everything. He looks at me again. He speaks to me like I still exist. Alara's eyes filled, not pity, horror. Celeste's voice cracked. When you're well, your father is gone. Meetings, men, darkness, and I'm just wallpaper. She swallowed a sob. I only wanted you a little sick. Just enough, just long enough. Luca finished the bottle, eyelids fluttering. Celeste set him down, stood very still, then left. Alara sat up, shaking so hard her teeth clicked. The camera had everything. The powder, the dosing, the confession. This was it. This was the moment the story could turn. A sound outside her door. A soft, deliberate click. Alara froze. She hadn't heard footsteps, but she felt presence. Her door handle moved, and the hallway light spilled in, cutting a pale line across her floor like a warning. Alara's heart slammed against her ribs. The door opened. Not Tomas. Celeste. Her face had changed. The polished calm was gone. What remained was desperation sharpened into something dangerous. You were awake, Celeste whispered. I saw the glow under your door. Alara kept her voice steady by sheer force. Go back to bed. Celeste stepped in, closing the door behind her. Give me your phone. No. Celeste's eyes flashed, wet and wild. You don't understand what you're taking from me. You took it from yourself, Alara said. And you're killing your child. Celeste lunged. Alara dodged, but Celeste grabbed her wrist, nails biting skin, and yanked. The phone slipped. Alara snatched it back with her other hand, pulling it to her chest like it was Luca's heartbeat. Celeste's voice broke into a hiss. He was mine first. Alara's stomach churned. He's a baby, not a tool. Celeste shoved her hard. Alara stumbled backward, catching the edge of a side table. Pain flared down her spine. Give it to me, Celeste cried. Alara raised her free hand, palm out, buying inches. If you touch me again, I scream. Tomas will come. Salvatore will come. Celeste's breathing turned ragged. He'll hate me. He'll leave me. And then I'll be nothing. Alara's voice softened, because she saw it then, the sickness behind the cruelty, the twisted need. You need help. Real help. But Luca needs to live. Celeste hesitated. 1 second. 2. Then, from the hallway, a voice like a blade. Celeste. Salvatore stood in the doorway, eyes fixed on his wife. On Alara's wrist, on the phone clutched to her chest, on the truth vibrating in the air. Behind him, Tomas's hand rested near his holster. Celeste's face drained of color. Salvatore's voice came out terrifyingly calm. Step away from the doctor. Now. Celeste backed up a step, shaking her head like she could deny physics. Salvatore didn't move. He didn't blink. He just held the doorway the way a judge holds a courtroom. Alara's throat tightened. She forced her hands to stop trembling long enough to tap her screen and show him the recorded footage. I didn't want to be wrong, Alara said quietly. I begged myself to be wrong. Salvatore crossed the room, slow and precise, and watched the video without a sound. His face didn't crack, not yet. Celeste began to sob. Sal, The video reached the whisper in the night. When he's sick, you stay. Salvatore's jaw clenched. Something moved in his eyes. Pain so sharp it looked like anger because it was safer than breaking. Tomas spoke first, voice low. Boss, we can get Luca to the hospital. Now. Fluids. Electrolytes. Salvatore finally looked away from the screen and stared at Celeste like he was seeing a stranger wearing his wife's skin. You did this, he said. Not a question. Celeste fell to her knees. I didn't want him dead. I just wanted you to look at me. Salvatore's voice went softer, which somehow made it worse. You chose my son's suffering so you wouldn't feel alone. Celeste's sobs turned hysterical. Please. Please. Alara swallowed. This fits a pattern called factitious disorder imposed on another. She needs treatment, but Luca needs immediate care. Salvatore's gaze snapped to Alara. For 1 second, she saw a father, not a king. Get my son, he ordered Tomas. Now. Then, to Celeste, his voice returned to ice. And call an ambulance. And the police. Celeste screamed. No. Sal, please. Salvatore didn't flinch, because in his arms, Luca had begun to whimper, weakly, like a candle fighting wind. The next hours moved fast and slow at the same time. Luca in a pediatric bed, tiny IV taped to his fragile arm. Monitors beeping, nurses adjusting fluids, Alara explaining electrolyte replacement like her voice wasn't shaking. Salvatore didn't leave the room. He sat in a chair beside Luca's bed with his suit jacket discarded, hands clasped so tight his knuckles whitened. He watched Alara work like she was the only solid thing in the world. When Luca finally took a clean bottle without pain, Alara's knees nearly gave out. She stepped into the hallway, pressed her forehead against the cool wall, and let herself breathe for the first time in days. Behind her, Salvatore's voice came low. You saved him. Alara turned. Salvatore's eyes were rimmed red, not from weakness. From the kind of grief men like him were never allowed to show. I did my job, Alara said. He shook his head once. No, you did what no one in my world does. What's that? He held her gaze. You told me the truth, even though it could have killed you. Alara's phone buzzed in her pocket. A hospital email subject line. June Quinn, status update. Her stomach dropped. Salvatore noticed. Your sister. Alara froze. How? I had someone look into you, he admitted, not proud. I needed to know who I brought into my home. Alara's throat tightened. Then you know I can't afford her deposit. Salvatore's voice softened, dangerously sincere. Let me. Alara shook her head, eyes burning. I don't want favors. I don't want to owe you. Salvatore stepped closer, careful, like he didn't want to scare her. You already paid, he said. With your courage. Celeste was taken into custody quietly, but the fallout wasn't quiet at all. By the next evening, Salvatore received a call that made Tomas's face go tight. He put the phone on speaker. A man's voice rolled through the room with old-world menace. You humiliated my daughter. Salvatore's eyes went cold. Your daughter poisoned my son. You let police touch Marconi blood, the man snarled. You broke our alliance. Alara listened from the corner of the office, heart thudding. Alliance? Salvatore said. You sold your daughter like a contract. Silence. Then the voice turned darker. You have a little doctor, the man said softly. The one who likes to poke around. Tell her to be careful in parking lots. Alara's blood ran cold. The call ended. Tomas swore under his breath. That was Mikhail Orlov, Celeste's father. Salvatore's gaze snapped to Alara. You're not leaving alone again. I can protect myself, Alara said automatically, even though her hands were shaking. Salvatore's voice sharpened. Not from men like him. Alara hated how fear felt in her mouth. Then what? You lock me in your mansion? Salvatore's expression flickered. No. He paused, as if choosing words was a new kind of violence. I put guards on you because I can't lose another piece of Luca. Alara heard what he didn't say. And I can't lose you. 2 nights later, Alara finished a shift and walked into the hospital parking lot with exhaustion dragging at her ankles. Her car door was inches from her hand when a van rolled up without headlights. A hand clamped over her mouth. Another arm locked her waist. Alara fought, kicked, bit, someone cursed, tightened their grip, and forced a hood over her head. The world became cloth and panic. When the hood came off, she was in a basement room that smelled like damp concrete. A man sat across from her, silver hair neat, eyes pale and merciless. "Mikhail Orlov," he said, like he was introducing himself at a dinner party. "You ruined my family." Alara lifted her chin, even with fear chewing her insides. "Your daughter poisoned her baby." Orlov backhanded her so fast her vision sparked. "You will call Salvatore," Orlov said, leaning in. "Tell him he releases my daughter into my custody and hands me the waterfront roots he stole from us." Alara tasted blood. She met his eyes anyway. "No." Orlov's smile was thin. "You're brave. I enjoy breaking brave people." He nodded once. Two men stepped forward. The next minutes blurred into pain and Alara's stubborn refusal to scream. Because somewhere, in a bright hospital room, Luca was learning how to live again. And Alara refused to be the reason his father bent to monsters. Tomas found Alara's car in the hospital lot at dawn. Door open, keys on the ground. When he reported it, Salvatore's office went silent in the way rooms do right before they explode. Salvatore didn't shout. He didn't panic. He simply became something colder than anger. "Find her," he told Tomas. "Now." "Boss," Tomas warned, "this could be a trap." Salvatore's eyes lifted, and Tomas felt his own spine react like a prey animal recognizing a predator. "I don't care," Salvatore said. "If I have to burn every alliance I ever made to bring her back, I will." It took hours of pulling strings, threatening informants, buying silence and selling fear. By nightfall, Tomas had a location: an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the city. Salvatore loaded men into SUVs. Guns checked, doors slammed, and for the first time in years, the king of the harbor drove to war himself. Rain fell like nails. The warehouse squatted under broken streetlights, windows boarded, security posted in shadows. Salvatore's men fanned out. Two guards disappeared quietly. Then the doors blew open and the night lit up with chaos. Alara heard it from the basement. Distant pops, shouts, heavy footsteps, the building shuddering as if it knew what was coming. Orlov grabbed her hair, yanked her head back, and pressed a gun to her temple. "Stop him," Orlov hissed. "Or you die." The basement door crashed open. Salvatore stepped in, soaked in rain, eyes fixed on Alara like she was the only thing in the room that mattered. He raised his weapon, then lowered it slightly, calculating. Orlov's voice shook with adrenaline. "One more step and she's gone." Alara looked at Salvatore and, despite everything, found herself steady. Because in his eyes she saw it: focus, not fear. Trust, not hesitation. Salvatore's gaze flicked once, past Orlov's gun hand. Then he moved. Not reckless, not wild, precise. A shot cracked. Orlov screamed as the gun flew from his grip. Salvatore crossed the room in 2 strides, slammed Orlov down, and held him there with a fury that had been waiting a long time for a reason. Tomas rushed in, cutting Alara's restraints. Alara's wrists burned, but she was upright, alive, and the air around Salvatore felt like a storm barely contained. Alara woke in a private hospital room this time, bruised and aching, but breathing. Salvatore sat beside the bed with a cup of untouched coffee, suit wrinkled, eyes shadowed. "You're awake," he said. Alara swallowed. "Luca, he's safe," Salvatore answered immediately. Rosa stayed with him. Alara exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for a lifetime. "You shouldn't have come yourself." Salvatore's mouth tightened. "And let someone else bring you back to me?" Alara blinked at the words. He noticed her reaction and looked away, jaw working. "I'm not good at saying things like that." Alara's voice came quiet. "Then don't say them. Show them." Salvatore's gaze returned to her, softer now, like the edges of him were finally learning how to bend. "You changed my house," he said. "You walked in, broke my illusions, and saved my son." Alara's eyes stung. "I didn't do it for you." "I know," he said. "That's why it matters." Alara tried to sit up and winced. "I need to see June." Salvatore held her gaze. "You will." He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. Not dramatic, just final. Alara's hands shook as she opened it. A receipt. June Quinn's deposit. Paid. A second page. Student loans. Settled. Alara stared, disbelieving. No, Salvatore's voice went low. She had the transplant yesterday. She's stable. Alara made a sound that wasn't a laugh or a sob. Just her body breaking open after holding too much for too long. I didn't ask you to. I know, Salvatore interrupted. I did it because I watched you carry the world alone and I couldn't stand it. Alara's tears spilled. I don't want to be bought. Salvatore leaned in, careful, honest. You can't be bought. If you could, you wouldn't be you. He hesitated, then added, this isn't payment. It's a hand offered. Take it or don't, but I'm not letting you drown in front of me. Weeks passed. Luca gained weight like his body finally remembered how. Color returned to his cheeks. His laugh filled the mansion like lights somebody had forgotten to turn on. Rosa cried the first time Luca reached for her and babbled happily, as if saying thank you in a language only babies knew. Salvatore shifted too. Meetings shortened. He came home earlier. He sat on the nursery floor in rolled-up sleeves, letting Luca grab his fingers with fierce little hands. Alara visited daily at first for checkups, then, because she couldn't stop. She told herself it was for Luca. But sometimes, late at night, she found herself in the kitchen with Salvatore, both of them quiet, sharing a cup of tea like ordinary people. He asked about her childhood. The foster homes. The hunger. The way she learned not to expect softness. She asked about his. The father he lost. The way power had raised him like a wolf. One night, he said, almost like it was a confession, you're the only person who looks at me like I'm human. Alara stared at the fire in the hearth. Maybe because I've seen what happens when people forget they are. Salvatore's hand hovered near hers on the table. Not touching. Asking permission without words. Alara didn't move away. But peace never lasted long in Salvatore Marconis' world. Orlov's men scattered after the warehouse. But vengeance didn't die. It just learned patience. Tomas increased security. New routines. Different routes. Alara hated it. I'm not a prisoner, she snapped one morning. Salvatore didn't argue. He just said, then don't be reckless. Alara's anger flared because it was easier than admitting fear. You don't get to control my life. Salvatore's eyes sharpened. I'm not controlling you. I'm protecting you from people who don't play by rules. Alara's voice dropped. And what about protecting me from you? The words landed like a slap. Salvatore went still. Then he nodded once, slow, as if accepting a truth he'd avoided. You're right, he said quietly. You should fear my world. It ruins things. Alara's throat tightened. Then why'd I keep coming back? Salvatore's voice turned rough. Because you care about Luca. Alara met his eyes. That's not the only reason. Silence stretched. And for the first time, Salvatore looked afraid. Not of enemies, not of prison, not of death. Afraid of hope. The next night, Alara arrived ready to argue again. And found Salvatore waiting in the foyer without guards hovering. No Tomas behind him. No men in suits. Just Salvatore, looking tired and real. I dismissed them, he said. Alara blinked. Why? Because you were right, he admitted. Protection can become a cage. And you won't love anyone who cages you. Alara's pulse stumbled. I can't offer you a clean life, Salvatore said. But I can offer you a choice every day. Stay or go. No threats. No leverage. Alara swallowed hard. And if I go? His jaw clenched. Then I'll hate it. And I'll let you. Alara stepped closer, voice quiet. No one ever lets me go without punishing me for it. Salvatore's eyes softened. I'm trying to become someone who doesn't. Alara looked past him toward the nursery where Luca slept safe and warm. Then back at the man who had been taught power was the only language worth speaking. I don't need you to be perfect, she said. I need you to be real. Salvatore nodded once. Then I'm real. And he finally took her hand, gentle, like he was afraid of breaking the only good thing he'd ever earned. Orlov struck one final time. Not with a kidnapping, but with a file. A leaked package sent to journalists and federal contacts. Accusations, photos, half-truths designed to bury Salvatore under investigations and drown his legitimate businesses. Alara watched the news on a hospital TV, heart pounding. This is because of me. Salvatore's voice came calm beside her. No, this is because men like Orlov can't stand losing control. Alara looked at him. What do we do? Salvatore exhaled. We end it without becoming it. That was new. Old Salvatore would have answered with blood. Instead, he made a call, not to a hitman, but to an attorney. He handed over evidence from the warehouse, records Tomas had gathered, and enough proof of Orlov's operations to let the system do what it was built for, even if it moved slowly. Tomas stared at him afterward. "Boss, are you sure?" Salvatore's gaze flicked to Luca's sleeping face. "My son will not inherit a kingdom built only on fear." Alara felt her throat tighten. That was the real payoff. Watching a man raised in darkness choose a different legacy because love had finally given him something worth changing for. A year later, Luca ran through the mansion on chubby legs, laughing like the past had never touched him. Rosa chased him, pretending she couldn't catch him, tears in her eyes every time he squealed with joy. June, healthy now, hair growing back in soft curls, sat on the nursery rug building block towers for Luca to destroy with delighted cruelty. Alara still worked at Southie General. She refused a private clinic, refused a cushy life, because the kids in that hospital needed a doctor who didn't look away. But the pediatric wing changed. New machines, renovated rooms, a donation under a simple name, the Luca Foundation. Salvatore didn't brag about it. He just did it, and at night, when the mansion went quiet, he sat with Alara in the nursery doorway, watching Luca sleep. One evening, he said softly, "You didn't just save him." Alara leaned into the doorframe. "What did I do then?" Salvatore's voice turned raw with sincerity. "You gave me a reason to be better, and no one has ever done that without asking for something back." Alara looked at him. "Maybe I asked, what? A future," she whispered. "One that isn't built on fear." Salvatore's eyes held hers. "Then I'll build it." On an autumn night, Salvatore led Alara to the nursery, the same room where she'd first seen Luca's ribs and decided she would not let him die. Luca slept peacefully, cheeks round, fingers curled, breathing steady. Salvatore sank to one knee on the soft rug like it wasn't humiliating for a king, like it was holy. He opened a small velvet box. Alara's breath caught. "I don't know how to be gentle by default," Salvatore said. "I learned violence before I learned love. But you make me want to learn it now. Every day." Alara's eyes filled. "I can't erase my past," he continued. "But I can choose my next step. And I'm choosing you, if you'll choose me back." He swallowed once, and for a second, the most feared man in Boston looked like a boy waiting for permission to hope. "Alara Quinn," he said, voice shaking just enough to prove it was real. "Will you marry me?" Alara stared at the ring, then at Luca sleeping like a promise. Then she looked at Salvatore. "I don't need your power," she whispered. "I don't need your money. I need your truth." Salvatore's eyes didn't flinch. "You have it." Alara nodded through tears. "Then yes." Salvatore stood and slid the ring onto her finger like it belonged there. He didn't kiss her like a man claiming a prize. He kissed her like a man thanking the universe for not giving up on him. In the crib, Luca sighed in his sleep, unaware that the woman who had once stepped into a fortress as a stranger had become family. And that was the real ending. A baby saved. A broken doctor finally helped. A powerful man choosing redemption, not because he was forced, but because love made him want to be worthy of it. Sometimes guardian angels don't arrive with wings. Sometimes they come with worn shoes, dark circles under their eyes, and the courage to notice what everyone else was too distracted, or too bought to see. If this story moved you, hit like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments. Have you ever seen someone change for real, because they finally had something worth changing for? See you in the next Forbidden Love cinematic story.